pace has dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Saturday Power Hour edition. February 6th is the date. And we know when MLS is going to get started now. We're almost 100% sure. It's been approved. It's got to go through the formal ratification process, but don't let that freak you out. MLS and the MLSPA came to their senses, got a deal done. Man, this could have been done a long time ago, the way this thing worked out. But I hope the posturing was worth it. I hope everything went well. I hope everybody's happy. And now you've got an agreement to work together through the end of the 2027 season. They did add 2 years to the CBA. There were concessions to the players. Free agency is more open, which I think is a good thing for the league as a whole. More money pumped into the cap in that last year, that additional year, up to 10% more, which is a pretty big jump in the cap from 26 to 27. Those are the things we know about. There could be other little elements. Again, this could have been agreed to a long time ago, but you always wait to the last minute and then push it back as far as you can and then try to push it back again and then get an extra 24 hours and then get it done. It's what we do. It's done. Turner Kirby says, saw some people were upset at the union for caving. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how different in all of the terms this is from what the league initially proposed. We know the 2-year element, and that was one of the big things. And yes, the league got the 2 years they wanted. Did they give up more than they intended to? We don't truly know. They gave up something. I mean, I would assume if the players did just take the original proposal, which I don't think is the case in any way, then, yeah, we definitely could have been done with it sooner, and that would be a bit of a cave. But, I mean, look, as we said at the beginning, when the league proposed this, we knew the terms that were on the table that both sides had kind of laid out. The players did not want a pay cut right now. They did not think they could handle a pay cut comfortably right now. So if you're not going to do it right now, the league said, well, we need to make up this money one way or another because we lost a ton and we're going to lose more this year. How about we do it this way? And then it just took forever and lingered. I'm glad they got it done. I'm glad it didn't get any more just ridiculous, really, because it was starting to edge to that. We know now that training camps can open on February 22nd. We know that the season is set to open on the first weekend in April after the March international break. We know what the season will look like, and we'll start to hear more. I think we'll get the full parameters of this U22 initiative going forward. We'll know what that will mean for roster rules and limits and sizes and manipulations and all of that. And this should be something that is now done. Now, there were, of course, some very snarky things said by people who it seemed like didn't want a deal to get done, and I do not understand why. If you work in the game in this country, you want a deal done. If you love soccer in this country, you want a deal done. I'm completely over the mentality of people who are smart soccer people in the United States who really don't like MLS and to a point where they actively talk about it in a negative sense and always point out the negatives. Don't understand it. Doesn't happen in any other country in the world. Even if your domestic league's not the best in the world. It makes no sense to try to drag it down. You do nothing for the game in that way because I'm sorry, the grassroots clubs, which are amazing and do incredible work, they're great at what they do. Grassroots clubs. They're great at the grassroots. That's very different than what a big club does. Big clubs need to be better at grassroots, but that's not their jobs. Grassroots clubs need to grow as big as they can be, but they're not expected to draw 50,000 people into a huge stadium. They're not built to do that. You need both. And you need to understand your place. And this idea that like MLS is the big bad guy here in American soccer, look, that's got to stop, y'all. I've been there. I saw what the game was before MLS. It wasn't a fun place. I mean, if you only like your concerts in a small concert hall or somebody's basement or a backyard or a club that has a room for 100 people, if that's all you like, cool. That's all you like. There's a lot of people who like things that are big. And when things are big, you're going to get players that are big. And you're going to get things to be bigger. David Beckham wasn't coming to play for the Long Island Rough Riders back in the day. He wasn't. Carlos Valderrama in 1996 would not have come to play for the Atlanta Ruckus. He wouldn't have. He's not going to play in a high school stadium. Come on now. It's grown in a big way. This idea that we want it to fail or we want it to suffer and et cetera, is absurd. And it's really got to stop. You don't see any other country's soccer media treat their domestic league in the way that American soccer treats its league. But yeah, I saw people starting with the speculation like, oh, well, now in this agreement, they can't invoke the force majeure clause again for another year. Well, that's kind of the point of the force majeure clause. And you can't just invoke it because you feel like it. And people creating that narrative this time around, it was very counterproductive. It was invoked because, do you know when we're going to have full stadiums? I don't. Are we going to have them April 1st weekend? No. Not across the league. Are the Canadian teams going to play in Canada? Sure doesn't look that way. Do we know what the season's going to look like right now? No. Do we know what the revenues are going to look like? They're not going to look like they did in 2019. We know that much. That's why you invoke a force majeure clause. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card, as some people have tried to make it seem. It's ridiculous, and it's got to stop. If you love soccer in this country, you need MLS to be successful. You can spend your time not watching it. You can spend your time watching whatever you want to watch, whether it's only youth, whether it's only the NWSL, whether it's only USL League One, whether it's only NPSL, whether it's only your local team in your local league. All that is great. All of that benefits from a strong MLS. It does. Like it or not, them's the facts. So let's grow up, American soccer. Let's grow up. We're in the modern times now. We shouldn't have any of this CBA nonsense for a while. Maybe, just maybe, can actually embrace that we are in a position that we have never had in this country with a Division I league as strong as it is. And now that you got this deal done, this league can be right there with Brazil and Argentina and Mexico in terms of the best league in this hemisphere. It's right there in front of MLS right now. Look at how many players are going to Europe that are being developed in MLS, that are being looked at as top players. More than we're seeing out of Mexico. Yeah, that's happening. Okay, still got work to do to beat Mexico and beat Mexican teams. But yes, things are good. You can embrace it. I know coronavirus has got us all very negative, very cynical. This stuff happened way before COVID. Why don't we leave it when we get done with all this? Why don't we embrace that things are going in a positive direction? Why don't we embrace that the game is growing and in a good place? This is a good deal that the MLSPA and the MLS got done with this. It's good that they got it done when they did. No delays in terms of starting camp. No delays in terms of starting games. This is good. Now work together to make it even better.
No cuts in salaries, 2021. Improved free agency toward the end of the deal. It's 24 now, 24 years of age, 4 years of service. Used to be 5. 10% across the board increase in 27. Improved salaries when it comes to senior minimums. Revenue sharing with the TV deal, which is coming up in a couple of years. It goes from 12.5% to 25% and by 2027. So there's some good stuff here to grow the league, to have players come from all around the planet to continue to grow this league and grow it in its individual markets. We now have this stuff in front of us. So let's dust ourselves off, get moving forward, get into a season, continue to grow the game.
As I said on the Switch pitch, sorry, I'm a little ticked off at that stuff, but I get that way when American soccer doesn't realize how good it can be and how good it actually is.
Yeah.
It's just in a completely and utterly different place right now, and everybody needs to succeed. MLS needs to succeed and drive the way, yeah, because they're going to get the big sponsorships. But as we talk about with sponsorships, like, okay, big sponsorship comes on board, Coca-Cola or Pepsi or whatever, they come on big, and it's big, and they got, instead of Lionel Messi running around in an ad, you got an MLS player running around in a domestic ad. All that's great. Let's do that. Okay, the Birmingham Legion might not be able to go get that big of a deal, but RC Cola, maybe? I don't know. It's possible. RC could say, well, hey, look what they're doing on that scale. We could do that here. Yeah, let's do this. We can do this. And then Detroit City, Chattanooga, in NISA, they could say, hey, we've got something that we can model it after that. That's working on a big scale. We're not on a big scale. Let's do it this way. Let's grow this. And you can sell it to those people and say, hey, look at what that big company's doing. We can give you something even more localized. You need it all to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
You do. Chattanooga is big and bigger than they were because Atlanta United has grown and kicked it up a notch. That's helped Greenville. That's helped Tormenta. That's helped Birmingham. These are all good things. So, we can stop the infighting. We can stop the cynicism. We can move on. And no, Captain Ragamuffin, we are not going to talk about Big Sam in any long kind of way this morning. No, we're not going to do that. We will get you updated on what has happened so far this morning. And Aston Villa has beaten Arsenal 1-0. We'll talk about the villains here in just a sec. Early first half, no score. Burnley hosting Brighton. Newcastle hosting Southampton. In Spain, Levante and Granada, 2-2 draw to kick things off this morning. Huesca and Real Madrid are about to kick off at Huesca. And you've got games later on today. Bundesliga, late in the first half, almost halftime in the early starts. Mainz 1-0 over Union Berlin. Leverkusen 2-0 at home over Stuttgart. Wolfsburg on the road 1-0 over Augsburg. No score with Schalke hosting RB Leipzig. That's a win for Schalke with no score right now. And Freiburg, Dortmund, no score. All those are right at halftime, 44th minute. Serie A, Atalanta 3-2 lead over Torino in the wildest game of the morning so far, 54th minute. Sassuolo and Spezia 1-1 in the 56th. You've got games in France later. You've got some games in Brazil later. We'll talk about that. Games in Mexico later today as well. But, John, let's start with Villa and Arsenal. I'm going to give you a take from our good friend Kevin Egan on Twitter just a little bit ago. Aston Villa survived on the first day last season, or on the final day last season, with 35 points. Dean Smith's side reached 35 points with today's win, have 17 matches to play. Aston Villa are right up there with Milan as the most improved team in Europe this season. Your thoughts?
I'm down with that. And I think that when you look at just a couple of key acquisitions, you can get to that point. I know that having Martinez in net has been absolutely tremendous. I think it's his third clean sheet in a row right now for Aston Villa. When you have someone come in like Ollie Watkins up top to be that secondary guy, everybody's gravitating toward Jack Grealish, but then Ollie Watkins comes in from Brentford. He has the previous relationship with Dean Smith, where in his 4 seasons, I want to say, with Brentford, he scored pretty much 1 goal in every 3 matches. It was one of the biggest transfer fees that Aston Villa has ever spent. $28 million, I think, with escalators can get to 33. But when you have that relationship with the previous coach, you can come in. There's that instant comfort, instant level of comfort. I was about to say comfortability, not knowing if that was a word, but
comfortability.
So have Martinez to stop the ball, have Watkins to help you score it with Grealish to give you that secondary score. I'm down with Egan. I know that he's quite the follower of Aston Villa. So, but I can go with that statement. I'm there.
Villa's 4 points clear of Arsenal now. They got 2 games in hand. They've won the last 3 against Arsenal, and the Martinez move from Arsenal to Villa, where he said, look, it's not a step down. He's right. It's not. And Mikel Arteta, I mean, you got to be frustrated because, I saw a little bit of his post-match commentary, and they had the play. Villa sat back and bunkered. It's what you would expect, but they didn't have the breakthrough. And Arsenal has to get better in those moments. They got to play Martin Odegaard from the start. They have to. He's the guy who can break these things down. And he shouldn't be coming on as a second-half sub. You need him from the jump. The table right now, as we speak, live in England. Manchester City at the top, game in hand over the 5 teams behind them. They're on 47. Manchester United 44, Leicester 42. Liverpool in the final Champions League spot on 40. West Ham is in the number 5 spot on 38. Chelsea has jumped up to 6th on 36. They're level with Everton Everton does have 2 games in hand on Chelsea, same number of points. That's one of the elements that could really flip this. I mean, they win both their games in hand. They're level with Leicester in third. Aston Villa has a game in hand on a lot of the teams ahead of them. They have played 21 now. They're on 35 in 8th. Tottenham 9th, Arsenal 10th. That's your top 10. I mean, the big game of the weekend in England is tomorrow. Actually, there's a big one today at 3 o'clock with Manchester United and Everton. And we'll start there real quick just to get some numbers on the board. Manchester United's a really big favorite in this one, and I don't know if they should be as big of a favorite as they are.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the number. Manchester United in the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal. We've got a scoring update in just a sec. Manchester United minus 169. Everton almost a plus 500. And your draw's a plus 320.
Yeah, that scoring update's Newcastle taking a 1-0 lead at home to Southampton. Willock with the goal, San Maximin with the assist.
It's amazing what happens when you start Alan St. Maximin instead of bringing him off the bench late.
Well, John, he's been recovering from coronavirus, and it was pretty bad from everything that Steve Bruce has said. He's got a valid reason. Look, we crack on Steve Bruce a lot. That's one that, come on, let's give him the benefit of the doubt there, John.
But to your point about
can you
Joe
just
Willock,
say, can you just say, yeah, just give him the benefit of the doubt. Come on.
Yeah, just give him the benefit.
Just give him the benefit.
Okay.
I mean, come on. Well, Steve Bruce will do something silly before the day's over that we'll go back on.
But then you mentioned Joe Willock, once again, one of those key guys that you bring in right at the deadline, instant dividends for Newcastle.
Well, as Colin Martz says, Arsenal can't buy a goal, and of course Willock starts immediately and scores.
Yeah.
Boom.
Tafka says, I can't believe it, but I'm going to subject myself to a Newcastle match. My love for Miggy causes me pain these days.
Yeah, I've got the Madrid-Huesca match up on the TV to my right.
You're a brave soul.
Why am I a brave soul? It's a big game. It's a big game for the telenovela that is Spanish football, and it's even more difficult. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Real Madrid's had another chapter in the telenovela emerge overnight, and we'll get into that. The big game in England is Liverpool and Manchester City tomorrow at 11:30. What are the juice boxes looking like here?
Oh, let's see. Juice boxes on this one. Liverpool a plus 255. Manchester City a plus 110. And your draw's a plus 260.
I could see a draw. I could really easily see a draw. I would not put any juice boxes on any of this. I'd stay away from it. But I could, if I had to, if you said you've got an expiring juice box that has to be played, it would go to draw. I would just stay away from it, though.
Yeah, I'm not touching it because I want to see it, and I want to see the conversation that Pep has with Klopp on the sideline.
They'll be fine.
About weeks in the year.
They'll be fine. Klopp might get enraged and his face might bounce around a little bit.
I'd love it just if Pep would come walking out and he'd have like a calendar with him and just kind of open the page and go like,
Pep's
right in
not
his
that
face.
Guy.
Calendar.
Pep's not that guy, and he's not going to be that guy no matter how many of y'all want him to be that guy. He blew up one time in a press conference about Jose Mourinho after Jose had been a jerk and been a jerk and been a jerk and been a jerk again and been a jerk some more. And Pep told him off in a press conference, which was hilarious. If you have not seen that one, I recommend it. Pep will scream at the fourth official, as will Jurgen Klopp, ragamuffin. Don't get that one twisted, my friend. I would not want to be the fourth official in this game at all because I would need earplugs. I would need earplugs. I would do everything possible to ignore the two screaming lunatics on either side of me because that's what it'll turn into.
Tafka's on a roll earlier this morning.
What you got, Tafka?
First and foremost, he's watching the Newcastle match.
Okay.
He says, Hendrick just gave the perfect example of a player getting the ball first but still committing a foul. Perfect example. Then, holy crap, Newcastle have a lead, and this is now in all caps from this moment forward, and look dangerous and aren't sitting back. Did Bruce hit his head or something? Actually, no, I think it's Graham James, the new assistant, that has been getting a lot of credit for this. So.
Oh, you're going to go with the... You're going to go with that.
Yes, I am.
It's the assistant. So why is Steve Bruce even there?
Well, what's he going to get fired? You're gonna have to pay him?
That's normally what happens when you've been not doing your job very well, yes.
But no, I think that this is where Steve Bruce
Well,
gets
hold up.
What?
You said you're not going to fire him and pay him. So you're going to bring in somebody else to pay?
Yeah.
But you don't want to fire this guy to pay him and then bring somebody else in to pay. So you're going to make him sit there and watch somebody else do the job.
Steve Bruce play with others?
For what reason? Like, this whole thing's bizarre, and there's got to be some backstory on it.
There has to be, but and I think that and for me, this is like you're kicking the tires on an assistant coach that you bring in from Bournemouth. It's like, okay, why do you bring him in from Bournemouth? It's like, yeah, we want to see some more action. We want to have Newcastle do things
we
proactively.
Want to see some more action?
More action as opposed to none, which is what we've been seeing with Steve Bruce. But it's just, I think that this is, once again, go ahead and start the rotors, because this is what this is. I think that this is kicking the tires on Graham James as taking over for Steve Bruce at the end of the season. I just do.
Does Steve Bruce know that?
No, I doubt it.
He doesn't know that? He's oblivious?
Yeah, he's oblivious.
Wow.
Oblivious to everything else.
This is crazy. Madness. Byrne chimes in on the CBA talk. He says, I'm glad the CBA is almost done, but I think keeping the cap so low for 5 years out is a huge strategic mistake. Yeah, they could add TAM, but the cheap owners will slow that process down. Arthur Blank needs to run MLS. I'd be okay with that, because I think he's got a good brain about where this league can grow and how he can grow it. He's done a good job growing things over his business life. I don't know. Like, without knowing the books and knowing the full extent of the losses, it's really hard to say. They do need to make up some ground after what they lost over the last couple of years. I mean, even if you've got a bunch of rich guys who can weather that, it's just being realistic here. You've got to do that. They're not, I don't think they are going to cut back on overall spending. Where I would like to see them get creative, once they get back solid footing with revenue, I would like to see them, and you're going to have to get the buy-in from the players, because when this CBA was done, in the past CBA, that's where TAM came in. You did the CBA, and then the league could add a mechanism like TAM. In the new agreement, and this was the case pre-COVID in the February agreement last year, and I don't think it would have been removed, but who knows, maybe. Anything like that going forward, the league or the players had to agree to. The league couldn't just add more spending in without signing off from the players. I hope, and maybe I'm being naive on this one, but I hope that the league will, maybe in 24, 23, depending on how fast the recovery is, look to add an element to, if it's a new version of a jacked up TAM, if it's more TAM that the teams can spend, whatever it is, to be able to not just spend more on the top end of the roster, which teams are starting to do. I mean, the Brenner one is a big one. You're going to see more like that. But in what TAM did previously, where it boosted the middle of the roster, if you find a way to do that and the players agree to it, that's what I'm hoping will happen. That's what I'm hoping you'll get to see before the end of the CBA. COVID changed everything. I mean, it changed everything with the trajectory. I think they're still fine. But you have an opportunity now that you didn't have pre-COVID. I mean, you can be pretty quickly a league of choice over the Argentine league. You can. Because, I mean, outside of Boca, and Boca's not, printing money like crazy either, teams have got to make some tough moves, and River's making tough moves. Like, River selling Sosa, they did not want to sell Sosa. A couple years ago, they probably wouldn't have. But they have to now, because they've got to make tough decisions. We have a Miguel Almiron moment that is being screamed about in the Twitch pitch. Very, very cool.
Yeah, and I'm going to scream about it in a minute if it goes one way or another.
Okay. But back to the CBA stuff, I do think we'll see some changes that allow the league to jump Argentina, jump Mexico in terms of spending. Mexico would be an interesting one. I don't know where the conversation is on what their losses are looking like with COVID. That would be one I'd like to learn more about. I don't know. I haven't seen anything about it. I've looked. Brazil's going to be the tricky one, and Brazil's just all over the place. They're really hard to call. But if you start seeing moves like Brenner coming at a young age, yeah, MLS can be the top league in this hemisphere. Quickly. I mean, maybe they are by default in some ways with what the effects of COVID are going to be on some of these leagues. But they can be there. And I hope if the opportunity does present itself and the owners make money back quickly that they'll do that. What's going on?
Well, let me follow up on your point. I mean, yesterday with River specifically, Sosa was the lead story on Teisei as a part of a larger picture with River right now. And Teisei had as many as 10 guys that were being looked at either inbound or outbound for River. So, I mean, it's looking at River specifically, it's going to be interesting to see how all of this flux is handled. So that was my when I was looking at Teisei all yesterday afternoon when everything was announced with Sosa. Okay, here's the deal. Miggy was a Miguel Almiron moment, but it's another.
What is a Miguel Almiron moment? Could you give me a little more on that, please?
Well, you said earlier it was a Miguel Almiron moment. So basically, he's driving down, gets a pass, and shoots it, and it goes off of Bednarik and goes in the back of the net. Okay. So we're trying to figure out. It's 2-0 Newcastle, yep. And they're in the 29th. So I was waiting to see if Miguel Almiron was going to get credit for a goal, or since it went off of Bednarik.
I thought we were talking about like a VAR situation. We're talking about an own goal situation.
No. Yeah, it's an own goal situation. So I was trying to figure out if Miggy was going to get credit for the goal, or if Bednarik was going to get credited with an own goal for the second goal of the match for Newcastle. I have Shea Adams and Bednarik on my fantasy team. I did not start Bednarik last week when he scored the -7.
Uh-huh.
I have him in today because they were playing Newcastle. So an own goal is -3 for me. I'm off to a flying start.
Wow. That's bad.
Yeah, you're damn right it's bad.
That's bad. That's really
awful.
Bad. Yeah, that's.
I mean, I had a great start. I had Watkins and Grealish and Martinez for Aston Villa. And I figured because Southampton was playing Newcastle, I'd go with a bench boost function because I wasn't starting Adams or Bednarik or McCarthy. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, Newcastle being Newcastle, I think that I think that's a good idea. I think we'll get the bench boost this week. So I'm getting their points as well. This is not a good start for me.
Does anyone know what's going on here?
Yeah, Bruce, it's called crappy fantasy football management.
Southampton has scored as well. That game is intoxicated, as we are seeing. 2-1, Newcastle leads in the 30th minute. Yeah, the game's drunk. It's a little early to be this drunk, but it's drunk. Minamino, you're getting all the craziness. Willock scores, Minamino scores. I mean, it's craziness. You got an own goal from a player who should have been suspended for the game, but the suspension got overturned. He comes back in and gets another own goal.
Yeah, there's your karma right there.
Yeah, bad times. But it's 2-1 now. Man, what a mess.
Uh-huh.
Okay. River Plate, I want to touch on this really quick because John was going into some detail there. Just where things stand, you're you're 1 week away from the new start of Argentine domestic play. River got a new deal done with Gonzalo Montiel, who is expected to be sold. They owe close to $1 million to Liverpool and Uruguay on Nicolas de la Cruz, where they acquired 30% of the pass, and I think that took it up to either 80% or 50% of his pass that they own. But they still owe them money. They need $3.5 million to pay Atletico Madrid to keep Rafael Santos Borre past June because they got to buy 25% more of his pass to keep him on loan because crazy contract situations. I don't know. They are rooting for Lucas Martinez Cuarta to play 3 more games for Fiorentina because his agent says River will get $3 million more if he does that, according to the terms of that transfer. They're trying to get Agustin Palavecino from Deportivo Cali, but Deportivo Cali wants $2.5 million for 50% of the pass. They originally wanted $5 million for the whole pass. River's like, we ain't got that money. They offered like 1.5 for 30% of the pass or something in a loan. I mean, it's all getting ridiculous. But River's looking at bringing in $14 million from Santiago Sosa and Ignacio Fernandez. That has moved up from 6 to 8 with Atletico Mineiro. That's a lot of money moving around to try to get things done. I think they have some other debts as well that they're trying to get sorted out. Fernandez is one of those. So River is in a tough spot. River's also in a spot with Marcelo Gallardo where I think it is win now and win domestically as well as competing in Libertadores before he leaves, because I think he's gone at the end of the calendar year. His contract runs through the calendar year. I don't think he's back after that. I think he moves on to Europe. Speaking of moving on, reports from Cesar Luis Merlo that Hernan Crespo is going to leave Defensa y Justicia if he can get out of his contract. He's got to get out of that deal to go to Sao Paulo, which would be a big jump. It'd be a huge jump. Sao Paulo has been linked to Gallardo. They've been linked to, I believe, Matias Almeida, because everybody in this hemisphere has been linked to Matias Almeida at one point or another. We're still waiting on Chile to see if they can pay his exit clause in San Jose. That hasn't happened yet. They've been linked to Guillermo Barros Escaloto as well, and it looks like it's going to be Hernan Crespo, but he's got a contract with Defensa y Justicia. Will they let him out? How will that go down? We'll have to wait and see, but that's been reported by Merlo this morning. A couple other odds and ends that we haven't gotten to in the last couple of days with all the CBA down here and everything else. Keep an eye on a club in Denmark, Esbjerg. And I'm probably butchering that. Sorry, Danish speakers. They're in the second division. They're second in the second division. They have been sold to American owners, Pacific Media Group, who's putting together a portfolio here. That's the owners of Barnsley. That's the owners of Nancy in France. They've got 4 clubs now under their umbrella. You know, Barnsley and Nancy, not, you know, Manchester City or RB Leipzig, but you're creating, you're creating something here, and you know where you bring in guys from MLS and they can move from club to club. As Colin points out, Helsingør in the Danish second division is also American owned. You're starting to see some investment in clubs at that size, I guess, with the idea of getting them up and getting them into Europe, because it's a little bit quicker route into a Europa League. You know, how far can they really go? I think there's a pretty low ceiling on them. But can you get a return on a smaller investment? Yeah. And if you don't have the scratch to go buy a championship club that can get promoted to the Premier League or a League One team that can make a rise up, go into Denmark, go into Scandinavia, you know, go grab a second division team somewhere and try to move them up and get Europa League money, which different scales, but yeah, you invest in a Danish second division team and can work them into a Europa League team. That's a good return. That's smart investing.
Yes, that's once again, it's you look at undervalued assets and what you can do with that asset. And if it's not going into looking at something that's a top line product, you sit there and you see something that's like, oh, this has promise over here, and it's just keeping an eye on these undervalued assets. And I think you're seeing a lot of that these days.
Speaking of undervalued assets, French TV rights. They did get it done with Canal Plus, who played hardball with them, but now they have everything. Canal Plus has the whole TV rights to all of it. They had 20% when they lost out to Media Pro going into the season. Looks like they are paying, according to reports, $240 million for the rest of the season. That is a whole lot less than they thought it was going to be. Sean points out that the goal has now been given to Miguel Almiron. You're in the clear on fantasy.
Sweet.
Yeah, we'll see if that holds up.
Yeah.
So the French thing, they've got some money coming in. They've got their games back on TV, but they've lost a lot of money with all of this. You know, this should get them out of their potential lawsuit with Canal Plus on the other side of the deal, hopefully. Now they're going to do business together. But it's a mess. It's absolutely a mess. Keep an eye on PSG and what's going on with Mbappe, because it looks like they could be doing a very smart thing. They could be signing Mbappe, but giving him an out clause to Real Madrid. And this is totally pandemic related. Real Madrid's not in a position where they can spend a lot of money right now. And I see you, Bernie. We'll get into it in just a second. Like, this stuff's affecting leagues everywhere. And when you see Real Madrid saying, yeah, we want Mbappe, but we can't afford him right now.
Yeah.
Like, MLS's salary cap and overall spend are two different things, and we know that. MLS expenditures versus everybody is not quite as bad as it used to be. Anyway, Real Madrid, what they might end up doing here with PSG, because, look, Mbappe's not going to be able to get as much money as he would want at Madrid right now. He can get that at PSG. In a couple of years, could he get that at Real Madrid when they bounce back? Yeah. So it's almost like a get paid now nicely at PSG, take it, have an out clause for Real Madrid when they're ready to cut the big check, make your move to Madrid. You know, Madrid's looking, again, Madrid's looking at another salary reduction of 25% now for staff.
Mm.
They're still trying to get all the players to sign on to a 10% pay cut. Like, it's real. So, Mbappe staying at PSG financially makes the most sense. Creating this avenue makes it kind of a no-brainer for Mbappe to stay. You know, give him that out clause when Madrid's able to hit that number, and if you just want to make it specific for Madrid, go for it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Smart move.
Yes, and that's, I think that when you have teams that are looking at ways to do things differently in a pandemic economy, I think that this is one of those examples of that. And it just happens to be with a very top-end player that you want to try to get something in return for at some point. But if you can sit there and figure out, all right, let's be a little creative here and come up with something to hang on to a player in contract form, then if you can jettison him and then work things out. Now, it's a time to be creative, and I think you're seeing that with PSG.
We mentioned Real Madrid.
Yes.
And this is where, if we had an in-house band, the music would get very sad. Sergio Ramos. Surgery in the next few hours, according to AS. Left knee. This has been an issue since the Super Cup back in mid-January. Could be out for 6 to 10 weeks. He's tried to play through it. He trained this week, and it got worse again. I mean, he's played a little. He's tried to play through this stuff. He's been doing every cortisone shot and anything he can do to play, and he just can't. So meniscus surgery, left knee operation, could be out 6 to 10 weeks. That's a massive problem for Madrid because, as we've seen, when he's not there, they lose their heart and soul. Now, Barcelona is also involved in this Spanish telenovela, and Luis Suarez talked a little bit about his exit from Barcelona. He's having a very good year at Atleti, but he said to Onda Cero about how he was forced to leave by Bartomeu and by Ronald Koeman. Ronald Koeman is not completely innocent in all this. Suarez said, "It was tough because of the way I was disrespected, but I wanted my children to see me leave the club with my head held high. When the time came to tell my children about the move, it was very difficult. They're older now, and sensed there was going to be a change. There were some very tough moments surrounding my departure from Barcelona. There were rumors that were eventually confirmed, and that's what hurt me the most." And he said about the way it went down, Coleman called me and told me I wasn't in his plans. I accepted the decision, but I told him I had a contract and the club would have to sort it out. I was given the option not to show up for preseason, but I said that I was still under contract and I was going to show up. And then they let him walk for nothing. He goes to Atleti. He's having an incredible season, big part of why Atleti's going to win the league. And it's embarrassing. And the stuff with Coleman just saying, I'm not going to play him. Like, that's even worse, because if this was just a Bartomeu thing with his politics and his ridiculousness, fine. He's done a lot of stupid things. He's added to the list. But now, if when it's Ronald Koeman saying, he's not part of my plans, well, that looks really bad. It looks like an incredibly bad misjudgment.
Oh, and I mean, you sit there and it's like you have a talent like this. And he went on to say that nobody explained it to me properly. I didn't get to speak to Bartomeu. My lawyer took care of it. And the first thing I said in terms of negotiations with Atleti was that I didn't want to do anything until I left Barca. There was a lot of talk about Juve, plenty of clubs interested. Kept moving forward my Italian passport because it was something I'd been doing for a year. And then he goes on in that same piece to talk about his relationship with Messi. But this just it's just something else that you sit there and put into the dysfunction in the telenovela when it comes to Barca. And it's just like you just want to shake him and go, dude.
Well, they did shake him and go, dude, when they forced Bartomeu out. I mean, that's happened, but now how you bounce back, we'll just have to see. A lot of discussion on the Twitch pitch about MLS salary levels and salary caps and how much spending you're doing. You're going to have different teams that spend different amounts in every league in the world. I mean, I think Burns said, Independiente spends more than your average MLS team. When the checks actually happen, I guess, possibly, which hasn't been the case. And that's a huge element. But also in Argentina, I mean, Independiente is one of the bigger teams. They're having serious financial problems, but they're a grande. Sarmiento is not spending anything like that. Platense is not spending anything like that. A lot of clubs aren't spending anything like that. So you've got this range. Everybody's run differently. And I'll push back a little bit on Dallas being run poorly because I think they've hit on a model. They're not maybe as well-resourced as some others. But they have the ability to spend more when they develop players and sell them on, because then you're bringing GAM into the mix or allocation money into the mix because it's all under the same bucket now except for the discretionary. You're bringing allocation money into the mix by doing something. I think that's good business. I think you're being run well in that case. They can't spend like others. Can they recruit better in some cases? Yeah, absolutely. But there's only a handful of clubs that in this hemisphere that are like blowing MLS top teams out of the water in terms of spending. It's a handful. I don't know if that's going to be the case when we get through all of this, but we'll just have to wait and see. MLS needs to spend more. I'm with you. There are some owners who are not wanting to spend as much. Again, that happens in every league. The difference is in this league, you have a negotiated salary cap, and who has the voice? I think the voice is changing. You're bringing new owners in. David Tepper's not going to want to spend like teams did, 10, 15 years ago. He's not. He's going to want to be big and bold and aggressive. We've seen Austin be aggressive in their own way. They're not spending, $20 million on a player, but they're spending. We know what Atlanta did. We know what LAFC did. We see Cincinnati right now. I mean, Cincinnati's got money, and they're starting to figure out how to use it a little bit better. So I think that process is changing. I really do. I do think it was slowed down by the pandemic. And if you just look at the way the negotiations have gone, you had a CBA that was set for a certain year. You've had a year and at least half of another year that are going to be, if you come out at the end of all this and tell me that MLS has lost over $1.5 billion in 2 years, I could absolutely see it. I mean, I did some like back of the napkin kind of math last year when you started figuring out what it would look like without fans, and just from averaging a ticket price, I think taking the MLS average ticket price and taking away the attendance, you worked out to around $800,000 in losses, or $800 million in losses. Is massive. And they then had increased expenditures. So, I mean, everybody can haggle about that. And I know that, that was part of this discussion was, well, how much did you really lose, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to lose $1 billion plus, I think, when all is said and done. So does that slow down the growth a little bit, possibly? Yeah, I think it has to. Because you've got some owners who can handle that. You've got some who can't. You've got some who honestly just probably can't. And they've got to be very comfortable with how this goes. I think maybe it accelerates the sales of some teams. I think it could. I mean, you're seeing teams look at bringing in new investment, selling shares, selling portions because of these losses. So I think that just has to be an element here. I want MLS to spend more too. I want MLS MLS teams to be able to compete with Boca, River, Gremio, Palmeiras, Monterrey, Tigres, Club America in spending. Because those are the big ones, really. There's not a whole lot of other ones. A couple more Brazilians, maybe. I mean, Racing and Independiente could be there, but they're both not in great shape right now financially, and they've got all kinds of internal issues. Chivas can be in that conversation from time to time. Pumas and Cruz Azul can get there, but there's not much. I want not just Atlanta and LAFC and maybe NYCFC and now Miami you can add into that. I want to see more MLS teams outspending those big teams in this hemisphere. But they got to recoup a little bit.
Yeah.
They just have to. It has slowed it down, in my opinion.
And I think...
But good discussion, really good discussion, you guys. And I know it's going to continue over to the Discord, which is what the Discord is for. So good stuff. I love when we get into this and kind of nerd out on stuff. But it's complicated. And I don't know if we'll really have a true understanding of it until the end of maybe even 22.
Yeah.
Where you see everything fully back. Because I don't know how fast everything truly is fully back.
Right. And I think that, to your point, when it comes to owners, I think that what you'll see is you will see some of the current ownerships, they won't be in a position where they think that they have recovered and they're going to want to sell. And I think that you're going to have some folks who are going to want to come into MLS, like we were discussing with the clubs, the businesses that are coming up with their larger portfolios overseas. I think that you're going to see folks who are going to see Major League Soccer and their franchises as something that is a growth asset. And you'll have these folks who will want to dive in on this and take advantage of folks that won't want to be a part of things because they physically can't anymore.
Yeah, I think MLS right now is a safe investment. It's a long-term play. You don't know where the ceiling is yet. And that's the biggest question. You'll make money. Just it's a very safe investment right now. The sales that we've seen even during the pandemic bear that out. You buy an expansion team, Cincinnati's value jumped from purchase price to their valuation pretty fast. A valuation in terms of a sale, what it was valued at in a sale situation. So it's a good investment. Can it be even bigger? Yes, I think it can. I think it can be bigger with more money in CONCACAF. I think it can be bigger with more transfer fees, more revenue coming in from that side of things. I think it can be bigger with participation in the Copa Sudamericana and the Copa Libertadores. I think it can be bigger with just the growth of the league as well. More TV money coming in, all those kinds of things. There's room to grow. But right now, it's not a boom investment. It's not GameStop. If we're going to play that GameStop actually ended up not working out as good, which you kind of knew would happen. Anyway, it's not going to boom like that straight away, but it's a safe investment. I think it can be an even better investment over time if the league operates in a smart way coming out of this pandemic, and we'll see if they do. A couple other bits of news before we get you caught up on the games that are currently going and we head out for the weekend. Inter, speaking of financial trouble, they have reportedly rejected their owner, Suning, rejected a €750 million bid from BC Partners to acquire a majority stake. Sounds like Suning does not want to give up a majority stake. They want to sell a minority stake in the team unless the money is like $1 billion or €1 billion. We'll see if they can pull that together. There are a bunch of different funds that are talking to Inter in terms of this and trying to figure it out. It looks like Miguel Almiron has a second goal. It's crazy what happens when you play him in an attacking role.
Yeah, shocker.
Whoever's doing that, good job at Newcastle. We'll recap that in a second. Italy is working on a plan to potentially bring fans back into the stadiums in spring. I've not heard about this in any other major European league. They're also looking at bringing fans in the stands for Euro 2020, which will have games played in Rome. They're talking on the football and the basketball side with the Italian Technical Scientifical Committee to dig into this. A meeting's expected to take place in a couple of weeks. If the number of COVID cases in the country remains under control over the next few months, they're looking at a max of 1,000 fans in stadiums in the spring and a maximum of 30% capacity for Euro 2020 in the summer. That's Italy's plan. Last one is Bayern. They played yesterday, and the game got moved up just a little bit because they're trying to get to the Club World Cup. Well, they had some problems with their trip. They were stuck on the plane. It was delayed by 7 hours. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge says, we feel totally messed around. They won 1-0 over Hertha. That game was moved up by 30 minutes to allow for the PCR tests as part of FIFA protocol coming into the FIFA competition. So the plane had to be de-iced because of the weather. If you saw the game, you know why. Bild reports the plane had the all clear at 1 minute before midnight. However, from midnight, the overnight travel ban kicks in at the Berlin airport. The plane overstepped that by 30 seconds per Bild. Okay. Then Bild said a 7-hour overnight wait on the plane had to happen. They had to have a crew change necessary. They had to do a stopover in Munich from Berlin to Munich. They didn't leave for Doha until 9:15 this morning German time. And Rummenigge is very, very angry. Very, very angry. So we will see how Bayern's match goes, but they will be in Doha. I don't know how long it takes to get from Munich to Doha, but they will be there shortly, I guess.
And it looks like, I think their match is on Monday, and they are still a favored north of minus 700.
Yeah, and they should be, but it could make it a little complicated. All right, updated scores as we've got a few more minutes left. Newcastle 3-1 at halftime over Southampton. Miguel Almiron with 2 goals. On my Opta thing, I only have him with 1 goal. They still have the own goal listed, so we'll see how that debate goes.
Give it to Miggy. Come on now.
Settle down there, Sparky. Burnley is losing at home to Brighton 1-0. Goal in the 36th minute by Dunk. In Spain, Huesca and Real Madrid scoreless in the 40th minute. In Germany, RB Leipzig has taken the lead on Schalke, which is not a shock. Freiburg's up 2-0 on Dortmund. That was scoreless at halftime. Wolfsburg 2-0 at Augsburg. Leverkusen 3-1 over Stuttgart. Mainz 1-0 over Union Berlin. Those are all in the 66th, 67th, 65th minutes. Looks like the Premier League has updated the Miguel Almiron one. Maybe Opta has not on my end. Atalanta Torino's in stoppage time 3-3 in Serie A. Spezia won at Sassuolo 2-1. Now, a couple ones that we mentioned at the top. You've got Liga MX tonight. You got 3 games in a row. You're going to watch all these, right, John? Because you usually do.
Yes, sir.
Atlas hosting Santos Laguna, Club America hosting Puebla, and Monterrey hosting Pumas. That Monterrey Pumas game's a little tasty.
Okay, well, here's what the juice boxes say on it. Monterrey, a minus 195. Pumas is a plus 550, and your draws north of plus 300.
I'm a little surprised. I'm not up on all the moves in Mexico at the moment. Pumas is just generally a bigger club, so that's 2 big clubs, and man, people don't really like Pumas these days, huh?
Pumas has had a bit of a rough start here in the Clausura. They are 10th in the table. 4 matches played, 1, 2, and 1. So they're kind of in the middle. They're fair to Midland right now when it comes to the table.
I mean, they're not that far off of Monterrey, but anyway. Cruz Azul, Tijuana, and Querétaro are leading the table on 9. They've played 5 games. Santos and Toluca are next. They've played 4 matches. Monterrey's played 3, and they're on 7 points. So, yeah, Monterrey's a little bit ahead of that. I'm not being fair to the Rayados. In Brazil, the Brasileiro is getting down to the wire with 4 games left for most teams. It's a pretty good race, actually. Internacional is at the top on 66 points. Flamengo is 2 back on 64. Atletico Mineiro is 6 back with 4 games to play. They're on 60 points. Sao Paulo, who we mentioned earlier, looking like they're going to get Hernan Crespo. They are in the 4th spot on 58. The top 4 go, I believe, into the group stage of Copa Libertadores. The next 2 have to go into that second play-in round. Right now, those are Fluminense and Palmeiras, who's your defending champion, who will go into the group stage, which would bump it down to Grêmio as the next one. But your games this weekend, and if you are a subscriber on Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here, You can add the Brasileiro pack, and your leaders, we'll run through those real quick. Internacional at the top of the table, they are playing, they actually do not play this weekend. They play on the 10th, hosting Sport Recife, who's towards the bottom of the table, bottom half. Flamengo, they go to Red Bull Bragantino tomorrow. That's a 6:30 game. Red Bull Bragantino is in the 9th spot on 47 points. That should be a pretty good one. That's your Brazilian game of the weekend, Bragantino hosting Flamengo. What's your Liga MX game of the weekend, John?
Ooh, Liga. Well,
caught you by surprise.
For me, let's go with the early one, Atlas and Santos Laguna.
Okay. Why?
Well, juice boxes pretty much have it locked across the board with the draw function. If you're looking at it for most competitive, for me, I like the 1 o'clock starts just from an optics standpoint. I like the 1 o'clock start with Toluca tomorrow afternoon because Mazatlan, you don't know which Mazatlan team you're going to get.
The Kraken.
Yes, and are you going to get the one that lit it up at home, or are you going to get the one when they go on the road, just completely and totally lay an egg? And I think that folks are looking at that particular club that's going to show up. But from a competitive standpoint, if you're new to Liga MX, just Santos Laguna and Atlas toward the top of the table. And, like I said, I think it's probably going to be a draw. That's where I would be looking. But, Santos Laguna for the early at 6 o'clock. You get your Liga MX game out of the way, and you can focus on the rest of the matches in the evening.
Juventus is hosting Roma at noon, and Weston McKennie will be in the starting lineup for Juventus. I know Kefsi will be pumped up about Juve and Roma. Kefsi, give us a prediction on Juve and Roma. What are the juice boxes on that one, by the way?
Hang on just a second. I will give you the juice boxes on it.
Ooh.
Tafka had a question before we go. Yep. Juve a minus 152, Roma a plus 400, and your draws a plus 325.
Kefsi's going 2-2 on that one, so that draw number looks pretty good. Do I trust Kefsi? I got to think about it.
Before we go, Tafka had a question having to do with CONCACAF Champions League and the payouts internally in MLS, wanting to know what you thought about awarding $500,000 in GAM for qualifying for Champions League, an additional $1 million in GAM for advancing to the knockouts, and another $2 million for winning the whole thing.
I don't have a problem with it. I think the pushback would be then it would allow the haves to be even more haves.
Right.
I would honestly rather see that money put into player bonuses. I would rather it be straight cash for the players and give that motivation. That's where I would rather see that go. Because I think then it will help recruit players because, hey, you got big win bonuses and these teams are going to be in Champions League, et cetera, et cetera. I'd go that route. I think what the league needs to do, where I would think they could benefit the most, is you want to give those teams a better chance to compete. I understand the logic behind it. Make it where everybody can compete more. And if teams don't spend as much, that's fine. I mean, if you need to have a salary floor, okay, fine, create it. But you're going to have teams that can't spend as much as the others, cool. But up the amount that everybody can spend. If you want Columbus to be able to compete better in CONCACAF Champions League, if you want them to be able to have 4 more players on the roster and add spending, well, then make the rule so everybody can do it. And if not everybody does it, that's okay because everybody's in different situations. But we'll see. We'll see. Burns says, I'll win my Leverkusen bet. Stuttgart's playing awful, and Nico got hurt after 10 minutes. Got lucky there. I don't think I've had a good week on those.
No. Before we go, a couple of other things really quickly. The Colonel came in and gave the Swansea update, knocking off Norwich yesterday 2-0. Jordan Morris came on late as a sub. Norwich was traveling and playing on short rest, so up the Swans. Matt Wagner with a question about Escobar and Remedi. From what he can tell, they're not occupying international slots, so if we loan or sell them, we'll still need to sort things out to bring in Ibarra and Sosa, right?
Yeah, I'll have to go back and do the math on the international spots because I had 2 before, but now you've added Lopez or Lisandro Lopez. Kubo's not an international. I think you've got 1 to play with those guys, but I think you need to add 1. That's off the top of my head. So we'll talk about that on Monday.
There you go. We're caught up on the Twitters.
Cool. Well, that'll do it for us for the Power Hour. This weekend we'll be on the Discord watching games, talking about games, digging deeper into some of the stuff with the CBA as it comes out. If you guys have questions, you're a subscriber, please go to our Discord. If you're a subscriber and you don't have access to the Discord yet, shoot us a message so we can get you taken care of. That's for Twitch subscribers. If you have Amazon Prime, you have a bonus Twitch subscription that if you want to give it to us, we'd be very happy about it. And you'll get into the Discord. You can also join on our Patreon. Patreon subscribers get in as well. That's patreon.com/soccerdownhere. Thanks for hanging out. We really appreciate it. We'll be back on Monday with a full show and a lot to break down on MLS as we will then be 2 weeks away. A little bit more than that. No, actually, 2 weeks away. Pretty much 2 weeks away from training camp opening up. So we'll get into everything. It'll be fun. Glad this is all sorted out. Y'all have a good weekend. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.